I guess it's about that time. Are we ready to go over there? Okay, I want to call this meeting to order. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda tonight is to hear from the commissioners about their weekly commission reports. Commissioner Pennell.
I will be attending a Chamber of Commerce event on the 19th in the evening. That's my report.
All right, Commissioner Olson.
Tomorrow night I have the Mason Transit Advisory Board, and Wednesday I believe we're having a Preservation Board meeting. It was canceled last week.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right. This week, tomorrow, I will be attending in the morning a criminal justice meeting. And then on Thursday afternoon, I'll be attending a MACECOM meeting. And then Thursday evening, I believe I'm going to be part of a parks discussion here at the Civic Center about the 6th Street Park. So we're going to be talking about that. And I live in that neighborhood, so it'll be a neighborhood conversation. So that is my commission report. The next item is our general public comment period. Do we have anybody signed up to speak tonight?
No one under general. We have 2 people that are signed up under
specific
item F, old business.
Okay, very good. We have another opportunity later on in the evening for the general public comment period also. And my fellow commissioners had an opportunity to review all of the information in their consent agenda for this week. And if they had, could we please have the reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. Vouchers numbered 79273 through 79373 in the amount of $1,129,293.06. Payroll warrants numbered 67658 through 67838 in the amount of $604,149.66. Transfer and banking fees in the amount of $10,490.26. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of September 4th, 2012, study session of September 10th, 2012. Civic Center rotating art gallery recommendations of Francisco Astria oil, Chiffon Snyder oil, Willow Miller ceramic, and Grace Mahoney oil on paper.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Under old business, we're going to be having an item, it's called an ordinance relating to a regulation of fireworks. And I believe this is going to be a briefing presented to us by our city administrator, Dave O'Leary.
Yeah, I'm going to, if you're okay, Your Honor, I'm going to repeat the briefing that I had previously because there have been people here and haven't heard all of that.
Sure.
Recently, we received a request to consider banning fireworks in shelters. Staff discussed internally after hearing about this. There were some mixed emotions. Those appear to have been worked out. Specifically, there was enthusiasm amongst folks that are in the fire business because they're the ones that have to put out the fires, treat the injuries, do the things associated with it. And, the police were reluctant at the beginning because it's very challenging enforcement. Essentially, they worked it out. Mainly, they believe each side now believes they can work with it and really just take extra time to facilitate good communications and try to minimize the number of people that are out of compliance because everyone will know that they shouldn't do it. Staff asked the city attorney to draft an ordinance and do associated legal research. This can be done legally. It's been done already in Lacey and Olympia. There's a 1 year's notice, so whatever you adopt and whenever you would adopt it, it would become effective for another year, so you have another cycle of 4th of July and and New Year's Eve to have fireworks in the city. The associated changes include banning the sale, not just the use, but the sale. And the only use that would be banned, all uses would be banned except for professional displays. And it includes all types of fireworks, including safe and sane fireworks. The violation would be a misdemeanor. The actions including immediate seizure and levying of fines, and then it's the Commission's pleasure as to how to deal with the issue of the ordinance. That concludes staff report. I'll answer questions if you have any.
Any questions from my fellow commissioners or comments at this time? All right, so I believe it is now the public comment period. Anybody that wants to speak on this issue, we'd be happy to hear from you. We have a 3-minute little time per speaker, and so the first person that would like to speak at this time, it looks like, is Clinton. So please come to the podium.
I just have a couple of questions. Number one, I don't know what prompted it. Do you guys have numbers on how much property damage is done? Has it increased, decreased? Has there been more injuries, less injuries? The city of Lacey did pass that, but it was by public vote in 2007. It wasn't by an ordinance. They put it up in front of the people. If we're that concerned and everybody thinks it's that big of a deal, put it out in front of the public. Let them decide. Last time when it was limited to discharge on the 4th, they said the constituents didn't want to have fireworks other than the 4th. Yet there was no support here, and it passed anyway. I'm not sure why. Everybody that was at that meeting wanted to leave it the way it was. Maybe a little bit more research needs to be done. That's all I'm asking.
You have 2 more minutes if you want to keep speaking.
To me, it's a big deal. I mean, there's not much in this country that you can do and you're actually in control of. And it's like it's been going on for 200 years. Why all of a sudden is it the wrong thing to do? It's something people can do. It's relatively inexpensive. They can get have family gatherings, all kinds of things go on surrounding the 4th of July. There's only one display in this town, and it's not on the 4th of July. Hood's Port's already packed. Where are people supposed to go? Not in this town. Not right now.
All right. Thank you very much. Next is George Rickel.
Thank you very much for your time. I'm here in most part representing the Mason County Republicans. Throughout the county, we have 3 stands. One is in the city limits. My understanding it is in the city limits. The city, in most part, they get a fee for us having the stand. There's a permit we have to pay for. There's other things that have to be paid for that bring revenue to the city. Other stands that are in the city also provide sales tax revenue to the city. It seems you're trying to cut off not probably a large revenue stream, but a small revenue stream. And that revenue stream comes from families and people coming into the community to have fun and just have a good time with safe and sane fireworks. I would say basically probably some of your problems you have comes up with a big broad scheme here where we look at people always screaming and hollering about government regulations putting businesses out of business. Well, basically that's the same thing you're trying to do here. But I don't think the problems you're having of property damage and those come from the safe and sane. It comes from the neighboring tribes who can basically sell just about anything they want. If you do away with the safe and sane sales in the city of Shelton, you're not going to stop people from firing off fireworks. That's proved right up in Lacey, Olympia, and everywhere else. People still shoot them off. Except instead of shooting off the safe and sane stuff, they're going out to the tribes and buying whatever, bottle rockets and everything else, which is not sold at your safe and sane stands. Safe and sane stands, basically for us, it's a community outreach to where we talk to people, and most of them, the one we have up in the Walmart parking lot, is actually a goodwill towards people in Mason County and people coming to visit in Shelton, because we make friends with those people, we talk to the people, we welcome into the community, that we're glad you're here. We also do the same thing at the Barclay Square stand. You know, people come from all over, they're seeing their friends, their neighbors that live in the city of Shelton, and we're telling them we welcome them here and have a good time. We provide paraphernalia, you know, sheets to show to use safe and sane. We provide a safe lighting mechanism so that people can light off their fireworks. We try to do it as much as possible. But to completely outlaw them, I don't think you're going to see any of those dropped as far as the property damage, response time to police and fire. You're probably going to see an actual increase because people will be getting it from the tribes where the stuff is not safe and sane. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next we have is Maxine Johnston, and I have a letter that you wrote. Did you want to read this letter tonight to the?
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? I have a copy if you don't.
Okay.
If you read it, then I won't have to read it, and you probably can read yours better than me, so.
Okay. Well, I'm Maxine Johnston, and Clint and George have kind of gone over pretty much what I had intended to say. And I'll just go ahead and then read the letter. I'm writing in regard to your proposal to ban fireworks within the city limits of Shelton. My mother and I have sold Safe and Sane fireworks at 524 South First in Shelton for 30 years. Your proposal to adopt an ordinance banning the sale of fireworks for just 1 week during the entire year makes no sense at all. Fireworks bans, limiting types of fireworks, or regulating purchases will need to start with the control of fireworks sold outside the city limits and on the reservations as well. Most people who want to buy and shoot fireworks will find them if they really want them. Since they were unable to buy Safe and Sane fireworks close to home, the city now has a much larger problem trying to control the larger fireworks purchased from the reservations. If the ban is initiated, it should be a ban. No controlled displays, no family use, no exceptions for events, no personal use, and no provisions for an end run around the ban to allow just this once. The city of Shelton should not pick winners and losers. It should ban all the year long with no provisions for any use, including celebrations, charities, or special events. If one person or group is allowed an exception, then why not me or other groups? It is difficult to control people celebrating Independence Day, the day our country declared its independence from oppressive rule. Proposing restrictive regulation to control the very day we celebrate freedom from restrictive regulation is an oxymoron and flies in the face of reason. The Shelton Police Department does not nearly have enough manpower to enforce any kind of fireworks ban. The cost is too great. I encourage you to look at the whole picture. And that was all I had to say regarding that. And my mother and I have continued the Safe and Sane theme in our stand for all of these years by giving away free color books and literature from the State Fire Marshal down in Olympia, and from our distributor who sends us free literature to hand out to the families that come, the families that enjoy backyard picnics and 4th of July celebrations. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that you vote the way we hope you vote.
Thank you very much, Maxine. I did want to say that your letter was really well written, and it almost had like a poetic note to it. Are you a professional writer? Anyway, thank you very much for your comments. Next on the list is Ed Johnston.
My name is Ed Johnston, and it's pretty much been said here, but I just wanted to reiterate that at the stand wife runs, every year we get a lot of return customers, mostly families with their kids that want to enjoy the 4th with safe and sane fireworks on a controlled structural basis. And they come back and buy every year so that they can do that. This ordinance would stop that. The idea that injuries is really, I don't think, holds much water, because if you're going to address a problem because of the injuries or the safety factor, the first place to start would be our high school sports. More injuries, more severe, by far are occurred in those events that are associated with fireworks. That's just a statistical fact. But it's the family arrangements that we put out, that my wife sells, and I just don't really see any benefit where if this is stopped, and those people that are now purchasing these limited power fireworks and certain types that are of a safer type, that they're going to go out the reservation and get them. And that is going to create a problem for you, no doubt. That's all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more? Yes, the last person. I'll write that.
Hi, my name is Cindy Klein. And I don't know if you answer questions, if I'm asking you different questions. I'm not exactly sure why you are putting a ban on something, and I'm wondering if it's all 3 of you that are looking at it, or just a few of you, 2 of you, or just one person looking at a ban. And I wanted to ask you each, what does the 4th of July mean to you?
Well, generally speaking, in the public comment period, we don't go through the question and answer period quite like that, but I don't have any problem with what you're asking. So I guess what I would say is I believe Commissioner Pennell originally brought it forward, and I believe that we talked about it, and then we talked to our fire chiefs about it. We talked to the police chief about it. And then I personally talked to people in the community about it. So it was originally brought forward by Commissioner Pennell, and we are in the fact-finding or the public comment period to find out more about what you think. And so what the 4th of July means to me is basically it's freedom. Freedom from over-regulation type government, I guess. And so that's my answer to that question.
Okay.
Like the Boston Tea Party, you know?
Well, to me, also, the 4th of July means freedom, but it's also much more. I hear the noise, I hear the boom, I hear the Armageddon, and it sounds like freedom to me, because that's the way I was raised. 4th of July is a time for celebration, the birth of our nation, and to hear the noise every year is a distinct reminder of what it cost us to get this far. And to lose that, it's touching, working in a fireworks booth, a fireworks tent, the people coming down who are fleeing other counties to come into Shelton to buy fireworks from Pierce County. Big old Pierce County coming down to little old Mason County and Shelton, because 101 is right there. And they stop at Walmart, they stop at the fireworks we have, and they're buying. And they're so grateful that they don't have to go out to the Indian reservation to buy unsafe fireworks. All of that is part of it, but at the same time, they're just grateful to be able to buy fireworks at all. and they know not to even drive through a county.
Sorry, that's that little beeper, so you can finish your comments.
Okay, well, just the touching part of people wanting to celebrate with noise, and that is freedom. Hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, at this time, I think we can invite myself and my fellow commissioners opportunity to talk a little bit about the subject. If we have any other further comments that either anyone would like to make at this time.
I do. I did originally bring this forward, as the mayor said, and the reason was that in the however many years it's been since we enacted the first ordinance that limited the fireworks to that one time right around the 4th and New Year's, I've seen an escalation of the noise. And with all due respect about celebrating the noise, there are also people who are offended by the noise. And it just has seemed like a war zone in a couple of neighborhoods, and I've heard that over and over again. Does turning our city into a war zone celebrate anything, really? People with pets are concerned because their pets are out running loose because they're afraid. Is that celebrating anything? There are a lot of opportunities to go to shows. I mean, I understand that they're crowded, but that's, to me, part of the enjoyment is being around the crowds and seeing the big displays. I'm just not sure that that being able to shoot off gunpowder, basically, inside the city limits is really the best use of our resources. I understand that they're always going to be available. We have no control over what happens in the county or what happens on the reservations. We do have some control over what happens within the city limits, and so that's what we're addressing. Personally, I would love it if we could limit everything to organized displays. I think that's a lot safer. I think it's a lot more celebratory. 1 or 2 fireworks shooting off in your backyard may be fun, but are the consequences worth that? If your neighbor's dog is running loose, or you have debris on your neighbor's deck that needs to be swept up the next day, or, God forbid, a brush fire that starts, is that worth the momentary enjoyment of having a few fireworks shot off in your backyard? Not sure it is. And again, from what I'm hearing out talking to folks, overwhelmingly they're saying, yes, we understand that it's fun, and yes, we understand that they are safe and sane, but we don't want the noise, we don't want the danger, we don't want the disruption of people's lives, and this is our small way of saying this is what we can control. I'm sorry for the folks who have the stands. I mean, I know that that's a concern. If there was a way that we could guarantee that everybody is going to shoot off safe and sane fireworks, that might be one thing, but we can't guarantee that. So again, this is the one avenue that we have that we can address this issue.
Excuse me. Yeah, you wanted to make another comment.
Commissioner Parnell's arguments you just made. The safe and sane aren't all that loud. They're regulated.
For the record, let me see. I'm fairly new at this thing. So for the record, you were signed up to speak for the 3-minute period, and a rebuttal. I don't have a problem with that. So just if you keep it short.
Okay. Yeah. The things she's talking about, most of those loud, big, booming things are coming from the reservation. So once again, that's not going to stop the noise you're looking at. And if we're looking at a noise problem that people aren't satisfied with, I've seen many car wrecks that make a lot more noise than fireworks, and therefore we're going to start banning cars. No, we have regulations of street lights, stop signs, roundabouts, different avenues to regulate them.
All right.
I think you're going down the wrong road, man, thinking it's the safe and sane that are causing the problem. It's not. It's, again, outside the community, which we cannot regulate, unfortunately.
All right. Thank you for your comment. I could, in Commissioner Pinnell's defense, we could have made action on this sooner. We prolonged this until this meeting to allow the public to come and speak about this. I have to be pretty much honest in what I'm saying in the sense of what I feel the people want. Most of the people, myself included, and I used to have a big dog that every 4th of July I could not plan on doing anything. I had to be home with that dog because of the loud booms that they got illegally, obviously, and lit off not at 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. Or 1 or 2, but usually 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, nothing we're doing here would control that or help that at all. But I've been in and around Shelton, and I've talked to many people in different neighborhoods where it goes on late at night, and if we, and during the 4th of July, have this dry spell that we're experiencing right now, maybe the fire danger or the actual events caused by a sparkler thrown up on a hot tar roof, maybe we would see a lot more of that than we have. One comment was how many people are rushing to get into here and buy them because they can't buy them in their own cities. There's a reason they can't buy them in their own cities, is that through public hearings and through meetings with fire chiefs and with all of the police chiefs and community people, they have come up to a point to where the ones you do in your backyard and the dangers and that the majority of people are not in favor of that. Now that's what I've heard. That's what, to me, I'm definitely not into over-government regulation, and if anyone really knew me, I try and fight it every way I possibly can. But does the majority of people, citizens inside the city limits, is there a life, do they believe it's better for them to have fireworks in their backyards, or would they rather not see that and rather see more of the events, the major events? That's the only, my personal feelings don't matter in here. What matters is what I've heard from you and what I've heard from people that I've talked to. And I would probably say, in reality, a majority of people would rather not have fireworks going off inside the city limits. Now, I would say that's what, I'm telling you what I've heard. Okay, and the people I've talked to now, Commissioner Olson, you have a share in this conversation also.
Yeah, when this came up 3 weeks ago, I guess, when it was proposed, and I began talking to other citizens, and as it got advertised in the paper, tonight's the first night anybody said that they're opposed to it, as far as my contact in the community out there. Everybody that I've talked to supports the ban. So Clint's comment about a public vote, there's some merit to that, I guess, but in a way that's sort of what we've done over the last 3 weeks, listen to people's comments, but do we need to have a public vote for it? But I see the point of that also. But like I say, tonight's the first night I've heard of anybody opposed to it in my dealings out in the community.
Can I ask a question?
Sure you can.
How come when it was limited before and now trying to limit it now, this is what you've heard, but nobody ever comes? Nobody ever comes to these meetings and says, nope, I want the ban. That's never happened. So I think the only fair thing, put it up to the vote, and we'll find out. There's no by guess or by golly.
Had you ever thought about running for commission? Just out of curiosity. I think we'll end this, generally this is not kind of like, what do they call the town hall meeting? And so we've heard all of your comments, okay, we've heard what you've said tonight, and I think at this time, now, we can make a motion on this, but I would probably think that we need to go back and think about this a little bit more. There's no need to rush in this. We don't have to vote on this tonight. We could. I mean, we're leaning in that direction. I mean, probably I'm leaning in saying I would not have these fireworks going off in the city, but if these two, my fellow commissioners, want to do a motion, I would do the motion if they wanted to vote for this now, but giving it a week or two I don't think would be wrong, and maybe we walk down the streets and all of a sudden magically there would be a whole bunch of people saying they want to have fireworks going off inside the city limits. So the best I could do, I think, probably would be to, if I was to give a suggestion, a friendly suggestion that we prolong this, we table this until next week, or maybe a two-week period of time, and that we think again about this. That would be what I would probably say. I don't necessarily feel putting it to a public vote is something that I would endorse at this time. I think that if there truly is a huge push for the community to want to continue to do I wrote down everybody's complaint here, and basically everybody who has a stand could easily move it outside the city limits and do exactly what they're doing. And so that would end that situation. We wouldn't get our city sales tax out of that sales, but theoretically you could still sell in the county. There's more people live in the county than there are in the city. And it's my job as a mayor and a commissioner to listen to the majority of the citizens inside this city and to do what they want us to do. That's my job. It's not my opinion on whether I want to light a sparkler or not. And so I would be open not to make a motion on this tonight. That's my opinion. But if my fellow commissioners want this motion and want to vote on it tonight, I would go along with that motion. So that's all. We prolong this to have this debate, and maybe the debate needs to go a little bit longer. But I guess I'm looking for input from my fellow commissioners on whether...
I would concur with that. I would agree that we should maybe give it in a couple of weeks.
Couple more weeks
more
and see,
people step forward and make it, fair to the people who are showing up tonight.
Yeah.
But I'd like to point out that my dealings, you are a minority from what I've...
From what I've seen, I think that's what I've...
Well, and perhaps to address Clint's issue, maybe the 2 weeks can give us some time to get those folks. They are traditionally not prone to, it's easier to be against something than it is to be in favor of something. So perhaps in this 2 weeks we can encourage some of those folks to at least write a letter or something like that so that we have something in the file other than just us saying it. So, if we can encourage folks to do that, then that at least would give us some backing.
One more quick note. I declared last Fourth I want to open a stand. To me, it's not about the stand. It's not about the stand. It's about doing it one more time. So even if it doesn't pass, I'll probably want to stand.
Okay. So I guess what I would do is I would like, if my fellow commissioners concur with this, I would like to go ahead and place this on old business 2 weeks from today. On that, I'm not exactly sure. I don't have the calculator in my meeting, and at that point, I think we would also continue to have our discussions out there on the streets and talk to people. And if any of you have friends and relatives that you want to come and talk to us, I'm around town all the time, so just look me up, and we'll postpone this for 2 weeks, and we'll bring it back under old business on October 1st. 2012, and I do appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you coming to the meeting tonight. So that ends our business, I believe, and now we are on to new business. We have none. Next is an administration report by our City Administrator, Dave O'Leary.
Steve Owens has a report.
Okay.
On
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I wanted to give you a chance to have further discussion on our development standards. You recall a couple weeks ago we talked about this in context of a number of things, including proposed frontage improvements. And the city administrator had a couple of pictures, I believe it was in Boise, that he had observed a solution for incorporating a pedestrian walkway along a roadway. I wanted to talk a little bit about how that can be extended into some residential neighborhoods, and I brought some photos with me tonight. So let's see. This is a part of the objectives I wanted to cover the space before we got into it. The city is a number of neighborhoods. The map over here on the side illustrates some different subdivisions and areas that have become part of the city over time. Many of those do not have formal sidewalks. Many of them don't even have curbs, simply a parking strip and travel lanes. So part of our future outlook was how to deal with this. We're trying to accommodate a number of things. The road itself has to accommodate the type of traffic we expect to see. On a real low-volume residential street, you might have a different solution than a high-traffic arterial road. There's the issue of dealing with the stormwater itself. The road runoff needs to go somewhere, needs to be treated. We need to have a way to handle that properly. I think this was the hallmark of this, was trying to address pedestrian use in these neighborhoods, an alternative to folks walking in the road, a way for maybe folks with disabilities to maneuver around a little easier, and to be able to get somewhere, whether it's a school, a park, shopping, opportunities to get people that exercise, but mainly to provide an alternative way to travel, make a connection. And we have some utilities out there that we need to think about as well. That's all part of what we think we're trying to address. We thought while we're talking about this, we can sort of revisit what a new subdivision might need to look like, or we think it should look like, or could look like. So, did I just turn it on? I'm not used to this button. I got up pretty early this morning, the bad hair day and all that. I've been up a while. This is a street in Shelton, and you can see the parking strip and the travel lane sort of have a flat V. The stormwater travels in the actually in the road, but out of the parking strip area. Nicely manicured yard sort of demarcates where you park and where you don't. But you won't see that everywhere in town. There's other places where people are pulling right off on the road wherever they want, basically. In this case, you can see that they've got an area on the other side of the street where it looks like there's a rolled curb. I've got a picture here that blows this up a little bit, gets you a little closer. This is kind of the condition that's there now. Certainly an attractive solution, no curb, but no sidewalk either. But certainly people could walk there if vehicles weren't impeding their way. This next slide shows a street with a rolled curb solution. In this case, this type of development became popular in part because it's a little easier to build a curb where you don't have to build the aprons and the approaches. It's a uniform structure, if you will. Takes the stormwater, provides a demarcation where the sidewalk is. You can pull over it certainly, but you don't have to build an apron or a sidewalk or a curb inlet for your driveways. That's what that looks like a little closer. Sort of a higher end street there again, nice front yard there. People aren't pulling on the yard, they're out in the street. This is Granby Heights. This development, the street design is narrow. As you probably are well aware, there's no parking here. You can see the street in this picture. There's not a car on it. Everyone's off somewhere else parking. I believe these stormwater swales accommodate treatment as well as capacity. You can see the curbs themselves have brakes to allow the stormwater into these treatment areas. The wide apron, not inexpensive to build, but certainly limits where you can park and where you can access the driveways themselves. But it's certainly a separated pedestrian sidewalk. From a pedestrian standpoint, this is probably the best solution. You're feeling pretty safe walking on that sidewalk there. This is kind of a closer look. You can see how the curb has the opening there. The stormwater runs under the driveway in this case and connects to the next house. And I took these pictures in one afternoon in the span of about 45 minutes. It wasn't like I had to go real far or try to stage these. I just drove around town, and there's a lot of these little differences in different ways we approach these things. This is a portion of Saddle Street. What was really nice about this one was this is one of the subdivisions where the curbs and sidewalks were part of the original subdivision. And there was an extension to the street here. And you can see beyond this first driveway in the picture was modern development. And this closer picture shows you this how nicely that integrated. I see this as sort of the nirvana of Shelton right here. This is what we were trying to achieve. Didn't get there all that often. We got there here, and you can see how well obviously that works when you can make it happen. This is the other end of the spectrum. This is a gravel road in Shelton. This illustrates some of the negative aspects of lack of improvements that we're trying to avoid. There's really no lay of the land here in terms of where's the travel lane, where's the parking space, where's my sidewalk. It's not there. You're walking down this road, you're walking around that fence down there, and you're in the road. Pulling up a little closer here, you can see this is the home itself. There's really no distinction of a yard here. You're just pulling up right up to your house and parking. Not necessarily as attractive a neighborhood as some of the others we've looked at. This is another solution that came around, I think, in the 90s, before I was here. This is a development where the frontage improvements were required, but a half street was installed. In this case, the paved portion of the street abuts a gravel road with no sidewalk. And you can see on the right side of the picture, there's an asphalt ramp of sorts that allows you to come down off the sidewalk and back into a lower area where you could walk either in the road or off the edge of the road in the parking strip. And there's a similar ramp at the other end of the development. And I think that's where this picture shows that first ramp in a closer view. So this was how that solution was arrived at in this case. This is the opposite end here. Again, not only does the sidewalk come to an end, the pavement itself comes to an end. Here you see a trailer that's out in front that's in the right-of-way, but it's pointed right toward where the sidewalk would be. And again, a person wanting to traverse this area is pretty much having to walk around that, if not into the street, to get around. This one was, I think, the worst example of how the parking solution or lack thereof affects the pedestrian connectivity. In this case, we have a development on each side of a old established house in a neighborhood where curb and sidewalk was put in, but you have the missing tooth, if you will, where there's nothing. And to compound that, there's also no delineation of where vehicles should park. So as you're walking down this sidewalk, and if you could turn me off for a second there to get a better look at this, that's what you encounter as you're walking down the sidewalk. So what we are trying to grapple with is how we're going to deal with this moving forward. As you know, we've had lots of discussion, lots of thoughts, not a lot of solutions. But we think that there are some good ideas for us to consider. We've often discussed the need for functional standards. And again, this I think points out the kind of things that we're trying to address. Right here, we'd like to have some sort of standard that allows a pedestrian to move through this neighborhood and not have to encounter this or walk in the street. We need to address some of the stormwater issues. We need to, I believe, make an improved curb appeal for that home that's trying to be sold. But we want that to be affordable. We want it to make sense. I brought the sidewalk map here as an example of something that we pushed forward and that's in place today. In my opinion, one of the elements that I think we'd like to address when we do this in total is things like the Capitol Hill neighborhood. You can see on this, I think I can use the pointer now. In this area here, the red and the green, which the legend illustrates, is where there's no sidewalk, which is basically this entire neighborhood. In areas like in the downtown where it's predominantly green, there's a fair amount of green up in the Mountain View area there, particularly on the commercial corridor where there are existing sidewalks, and we can build on the connections that exist now. In Capitol Hill, boy, that's, I think, tough area to expect a real network of sidewalks and curbs to get built efficiently, not in our lifetime, in any lifetime. Maybe there's a better way to do that. Maybe we need to think about how we can just accommodate some basic pedestrian connections and do something that will serve the community, but in a less rigid manner than the standards we have today. Our thinking is that we can bring forward some standards that maintain the curb, sidewalk, gutters that are in the commercial areas, areas we feel that's appropriate, areas we feel it makes sense, and a different standard maybe based on the street or the location, such as in Capitol Hill. That standard might look different than the standard we suggest up here, just because they fit differently. Perhaps there's other ways to address the economics of that. We've discussed the impact fees and how that affects development. Staff's willing to look at an alternative such as considering whether the transportation impact fee is an offset for some off-site improvements that might be required here, or somehow you make one or the other but not both as part of your solution. But I was hoping that we could have a little time to discuss these residential solutions in particular, and as we get closer to what we feel is a comfort zone on this, have our consultant get engaged and move that forward. And I have one more slide that it says, I turned it off again. Or Terry turned me off.
Turn you off. He can turn it back on.
It says discussion, so.
Oh.
I think you get the idea without a picture.
I have a question about the process, because we have a consultant. Were you going to bring back a suggestion or our ideas to the consultant and let him then, how does that work? How does that process work?
We started with a approach that we provided our consultant with some of the problems that we're seeing in what we currently have. And we didn't necessarily tell them how we want to solve that. We just told them these are our concerns, these are the issues we're having, and they went off to work. They've got other elements of this they're working on. I got back to them 2 or 3 months ago and said, why don't you stop work on the development standards for the fringe improvements until we can give you some clear direction. So what I'm trying to do is give them something that we feel is closer to the bullseye here, and have us come back and have something I think that maybe is a little closer to where we think we're going to land, and discuss that and refine it.
I have a bunch of comments, but you guys, Commissioner Olson, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I do like the idea of perhaps addressing walkability and parking delineation. Aside from the street issue, I think it's going to be much cheaper if we can somehow come up with an option B for sidewalks, where we know it's going to be a number of years before we can have paved streets. Realistically, if we could eliminate some of the engineering standards in some of the infill areas on sidewalks, realistically, you could do one lot for, less than $1,000. Just a standard 3-foot wide, 4-foot wide sidewalk without curbs or gutters. And at least then we're going to have a place to walk. And possibly if we could come up with some sort of a funding measure where the public would participate more. $1,000 isn't a lot to spend for a sidewalk in front of your house, and maybe we could get more of the public to buy into it if we could lower these standards to the point where it made more sense, rather than having to get a survey and engineer all the things that go along that need to be in the commercial areas. I agree with the standards alone there. I think we really, and around schools and such. But I think some of the neighborhoods like Capitol Hill, up around Red Apple, there's a number of areas in town. Probably the majority of town is in that position where a simple sidewalk would be welcome, and not put such a burden on the owners or the builders. And hopefully we can come up with money for streets down the road to match the sidewalk. So that's kind of
list that you had there was a good one. If we can concentrate on those things and figure out a way to meet those requirements. I mean, I think I've been pretty clear that my preference would be curbs, gutters, sidewalks, full streets, the whole 9 yards, because I think it's important for property values and for walkability and those kinds of things. I understand that we probably aren't going to get there anytime soon. However, I keep getting back to if we had started this 20 years ago, perhaps we would be a lot closer than we are now. So again, the idea that you have to start somewhere. I've seen just in my own neighborhood the improvement once we added a sidewalk with curbs and gutters in a good street. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. And the number of people that use that sidewalk daily, whereas before you were taking your life in your hands walking that street. So I think it's important for people in an urban environment, which we are becoming more and more. We may think of ourselves as rural, but we are becoming more urban in the city limits. So my feeling is that we ought to start addressing urban issues, and sidewalks is one of them. So if we can come up with a way to meet all of those criteria that you had up there, the stormwater issue, the parking issue, the property delineation issue, the walking issue, I think that we would be moving forward in what we need to do. I never have understood the half street thing. I don't get that at all. So if we can figure out a way to either explain that in a way that makes sense or do something else, I think that would be a good thing, because it doesn't just, as you showed in your picture, I mean, doing a half street makes absolutely no sense at all for anybody. So.
Yeah, I think there's a constant tension to try to be fair.
Right.
And, at some point, someone decides maybe this is fair, but it certainly isn't the improvement that is necessary. It has a maintenance component that's constantly stretching us. Those edges between gravel and pavement are an annual affair, having to come back in and deal with a dip in the road.
I've also, in listening to the comments, I think we have the makings of approaching the city of Shelton and its development standards the right way, because I think it's such a complex issue. 100% in commercial and around schools, put them in. It's got to be like that. But what dawned on me when we were talking is these neighborhoods are really uniquely different. And we have streets where 4 or 5 blocks there's absolutely nothing. And then you have streets that are half built out. And it makes a lot of sense to finish that curb, sidewalk, and gutter right around the corner and finish that. And so, but I think if I was to get anything from our conversation, it's that I think the one size doesn't really fit all. And trying to be fair on the 60-foot chunks, well, we just see all these 60-foot chunks with rims built up, and so I think fair is real hard, because at some point someone's going to have to, we got to have to compromise somehow, I think, to a degree, especially with the complexity of these neighborhoods. But the issues that I've been concerned with is, Commissioner Olson brought it up, is the high engineering cost to go through it for a 60-foot piece of property. Dave O'Leary and I talked a while back about if there was a way, if a new house or a house was being built in a neighborhood without the sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, at least a block-by-block plan, one half of the street, all the way from the corner to the corner, at least what fits best in that neighborhood, whether it's an asphalt path or a continuation of curbs, sidewalks, and gutters. The missing element is who pays for the extra 2 lots on that. And I believe we have to address that and give some clarity to builders and new homeowners that want to move into the city limits of Shelton, or a lot of these houses may have to be torn down, and when they are faced with that new construction, my idea is that it has to match existing, or it really doesn't match. It becomes unmatching if you require a commercial standard on a street where there is no concrete sidewalk whatsoever. So that is our issue. I think that's what the consultant and, you and your department and us as commissioners, I think we need to come up with a plan that's going to work for this community. I think we can, because I see a lot more agreement than I do disagreement about at least addressing an approach on sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and on these infill lots in neighborhoods. So we're working with your department and the consultant. I think today is the day to address these things. And if that didn't make any sense, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I said it was complex. These neighborhoods are very complex.
So it sounds like the concept of having a different approach in different parts of town sits well with you, and having a solution that is not a 60-foot solution, but more of a block-to-block approach might sit well with you also, but you're looking for meeting all of those elements that are part of the solution. That's a pretty good direction.
Obviously, we all love sidewalks, curbs, and gutters everywhere today, but if they're just 60-foot chunks, they don't help anyone, really. So that's my story. Did you have any more?
Thank you.
All right, is there any more on the administration report then?
That's it, Your Honor.
We do have an opportunity for the public comment period. If anyone else would like to speak, now would be the opportunity. If no one else has signed in, then we have the administration final touches.
He touches?
Okay.
Mr. Pennell.
Oh.
This is a little unusual, I know, but I do have a touch. I had a meeting with the library board and some of the Friends of the Library last week, and they have asked that I do a touch, and then they're planning to do a brief next week on getting a letter of support for their possible expansion of the library building. They need, in order to get funding from Timberland, they need a letter of support from the city because we own the building. So they're going to present some possibilities. This is actually funding just to do a feasibility study to see what they can do structurally or space-wise. So they're going to be coming next week to talk to us a little bit more about that and bring a possible letter that we could use to send over. They have a meeting with their financial people at the end of October. So that's my touch.
Okay. That's all, Your Honor.
All right. The next meeting will be Monday, September 24th, 2012 at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned. I'm sure there's stuff to sign.